Welcome back to Where We Are, a 5-part series exploring what it means to live in mission, right where God has placed us. I'm Tim, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about how the mission of God moves through people, not programs. So let's begin in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13. It says, "So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up, until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ." In other words, the church isn't a building you attend or a program you run. It's a body. It's a people. And the role of pastors and leaders isn't to do all the ministry. It's to equip the saints, that is, every member, to live out the mission of Christ in their everyday lives. At first, we've seen this in the most beautiful ways. Think about our prayer partners, adults who commit to pray for a child from the day they're baptized. No sign-up sheet, no 10-week curriculum, just relationship, just presence. That's organic discipleship. That's missional living. But here's the temptation, to think that real ministry happens in formal events. It's easy to assume that discipleship means a new class, a better program, or a more polished event. And while there's nothing wrong with good structure, we can't confuse structure with substance. Relational discipleship asks, who am I walking with? Who am I showing the love of Christ to? Not just once a week, but in the actual rhythm of life. One member of our congregation described it like this: discipleship happens when people feel seen and safe. That doesn't usually happen in rows. It happens in circles. It happens over coffee, not just from a pulpit. That's the heartbeat of mission. Leslie Newbigin, a missiologist who shaped much of the church's thinking in the 20th century, said something very powerful. The local congregation is the hermeneutic of the gospel. In other words, people learn what the gospel means by seeing how the local church lives. It's not the missionary in India or the preacher on YouTube who shows them. It's the guy at the grocery store who stops to pray, the grandma who writes notes of encouragement, the young adult who shows up for youth group just to listen. So here's this week's practice prompt. Think of one person you see almost every week, but don't really know. Maybe it's the barista who makes your coffee. Maybe it's your neighbor 2 doors down. Maybe it's the receptionist at the gym. This week, start a real conversation. Learn their name. Ask a question beyond, how's it going? Look for an opportunity to listen or bless them in a small way. Remember, mission doesn't begin with a mic. It begins with hello. In next week's episode, we'll talk about what mission actually accomplishes, how maturity and multiplication go hand in hand. Until then, remember, the church is not a program, it's not a place, it's a people. And if you belong to Jesus, you're already part of his mission. This is where we are, and this is how mission lives.